Welcome to Self-Help Book Club. We read self-help books and see if they help. Today's book is How to Win Friends and Influence People, the only book you need to lead you to success by Dale Carnegie. This is a book that was originally published in 1936, one of the original self-help books with a lot of pretty basic tips written, I guess, for rich white American men of the time. But the book is still quoted by rich white American men today, and that's kind of beautiful, don't you think? The book includes classic advice such as listen to other people, don't interrupt, and give compliments. It makes you wonder how these 1930s guys were functioning, that this was a mind-blowing bestseller. Ask my friends about their interests? Well, I declare. As Lord Joseph R. Dingleberry, one of the most distinguished white male racist thinkers of the 20th century, once said, be friends with your friends. Learn their names. Could it be that simple? Yes. Follow the advice of Lord Dingle, and you too will be a world-renowned oil baron. Learn their names? That seems like a given, right? But then again, there are still plenty of men in my life who don't know anything about their friends. As for myself, as someone who gets encouraged to take an autism test like once a month, I can't really claim that I won't benefit from social advice 101. My confession to you all is that I edit this podcast down to a half hour every week, and it's extremely easy to make the cuts. You know why? Because all I have to do is take out my own yapping. I talk way too much. Dan Carnegie said, do less of the yapping, more of the asking questions and remembering answers, remembering names. He's not the first or last person to come up with this advice, but if you don't know yet how to talk to people, you might actually gain something from this book. If you go about talking to people as trying to win and influence them, as the book phrases, the advice becomes pretty fucked up. Coercion is a big no-no. Manipulation, bad. Arousing enthusiasm in a potential ally by feigning interest in their life, weird. I don't know about tricking people into thinking you like them, but active listening is good. Learning about people's interests, not criticizing others, I can get behind that. Maybe there's some outdated phrasing in the book, but Dale's daughter republished this in 1964 to make it more accessible to audiences at that time. For example, what would Abraham Lincoln do? Is one of the tips in the book. Makes me wonder what the first edition looks like. What would Robert E. Lee do? We gotta update that one. Now, I don't know what the changes are. I know that Dale Carnegie was successful in his own right. He was a lecturer. He taught public speaking. I assumed he was related to Andrew Carnegie when I read this, but Wikipedia says Dale actually changed his name spelling to, quote, honor Andrew. And I do respect the grift of that, just a poor guy from Missouri with the gift of gab selling out Carnegie Hall with a fake name. My grandpa's from Missouri too. He grew up poor, ended up at Harvard. I wonder if he read this book. It feels to me like in the 30s, 40s, 50s, poor white guys figured out how to be ambitious. They could just go to Harvard. Both of my grandpas went to Harvard. One of them got in when he was like 16. I'm not knocking their hustle. I'm sure they were smart. I'm just saying, Dale makes it sound like, at that time, white guys could follow the advice, ask a lot of questions, and actually get successful from that. But now I guess they need to read like 3 more books to get ahead. Nonetheless, asking questions is good advice, I think. I try to remind myself to ask 5 questions in every conversation. My guest today is a hilarious comedian who I'm going to ask some questions. I have a much easier time talking to comedians as opposed to non-comedians, I've got to say, Non-comedians have sometimes told me that I can be harder to talk to. They've said that I'm weird and I'm rude and they don't want to be around me. Before I was a comedian, non-comedians would sometimes laugh at me, like they didn't get that I was trying to be funny. I could see them whispering to each other, like, oh, Kelly's being weird. And I was like, I'm trying to be funny. I've definitely also been told by some comedians that they don't want to be my friend too, but shout out to my haters. Sorry that you couldn't faze me, but some comedians do want to be my friend, not to brag. They welcome the weirdness. Maybe because a lot of comedians are weird too, I don't know. Now I've finished rambling, which brings me to my weirdo guest, Martin Urbano. He's one of my favorite comedians. You've seen him on Kimmel and Netflix. You're going to hear from him right now.
So, I mean, it was interesting to like listen. I listened to it. I listened to the audiobook version. And that guy was good. Did you read it or listen to the audiobook?
I read it.
The audiobook was good. Whatever's on YouTube.
Okay.
I liked him. You know, just kind of like old man who just like sounds like you're like.
He
really
sounded like the voice.
Anytime he recounted all these like countless like anecdotes, I'm like, man, I'm really like bought into the narrative of these.
Did he talk like how I imagine?
No, not like a cartoon old man, like a normal old man.
Oh, like a real man. Okay.
Well, what Abraham Lincoln said. Abraham Lincoln won, you know.
So he didn't have like a corncob pipe.
He could have.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But it was just like, it was funny, and you kind of touched on it in the intro. It's just like, it's very like teaching these cold CEOs empathy, you know, like just how to be a proper human being, a nice human being. And one of my favorite parts was like in the opening, which was like, I would hate to toot my own horn, but all these CEOs came in and were like, this changed my life. This changed everything. There was this one guy, he said, I ran a company of 314 employees, and they all hated me. Anytime I walked in the door, they hated me. But after they took my course, he was like, I had 314 enemies turn into 314 friends.
Yeah.
Like, I love that because it's like, there were 314 enemies. Like that's so intense. Like a company full of the.
It was
Spartan
really an
army.
era for people in my mind like having pitchforks. They're in there like rah, 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 rah. And he's like, please, I'm trying to teach you how to ask people their name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so no, it that kind of stuff it's pretty easy if you just like ask people their name and smile,
Yeah.
ask some
Yeah, I
questions.
mean, literally, I was like kind of went back and forth between being like, come on, we all know this, to like remembering the times people like gave me the exact feedback he is giving.
Like when?
I don't need to. You're the one. I'm asking the questions
What's a
here.
specific example, Kelly?
Literally, that's the problem. It's about me asking questions.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, no, I'm not going to go down this path. I'm asking questions.
Okay.
See, I know now.
I think I made a lot of friends. To specifically answer your question, I made a lot of friends when I was younger in comedy, because I think a lot of these like comedians who were like in their like 30s, 40s, and I was like 20, a teen at most points, but I'm talking about, but like, you know, at 20, and I was just so enamored with comedy and the lifestyle of comedy. So I would ask so many questions because I was curious. I was like, isn't it crazy? Like, we're all doing our like dream. Like, oh, who are your like comedic influences? And I would ask them these like questions. Mm-hmm. And I think they looked at this like bright-eyed, like, you know, doe-eyed, like young comedian who saw them as like great comedians or whatever. And they like really liked that. So I made a lot of like friends through that. And I think, and I liked to be around people. I was like really excited to be around, like, for lack of a better word, like my kind. You kind of talked about it in your intro. Like
that is kind of how you started comedy much younger than I did, but definitely it wasn't really until I found comedy that I got that feeling.
Yes.
And then it was really exciting.
Yeah.
I think before then I was really looking for like my people, and I felt very isolated, like in college, going to school in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And always feeling like people thought I was weird, or like they didn't like, they thought I was being annoying, or they didn't want me around. And then I moved here, and still it was kind of more of that until I found comedy, and then I felt really comfortable. Like, oh, we're all here for the open mic. Like, let's talk about the jokes we just did.
Yeah.
And that was very easy. And then all of a sudden I was surrounded by people, and I was kind of surprised at how well it would go.
Wow. And then as you continued to do comedy, did you find the fissure of some people suck?
Well, yeah, there was kind of a bell curve of
yes.
Like, I started comedy immediately for the first time in my mind. I mean, I'm sure I had friends before that, but in my mind, this was like the first time I had like all these people around me, and I felt
there's a difference
like
between like friends and a community. You had a community of people. And
I was so excited, and I was it kind of felt like you started a new school. Like, I don't know if you've ever been like a new kid, but when I was a kid, like if you change schools, people kind of on the first day of school, they all like want you to sit with them at lunch, and it's kind of like you feel like, oh, I'm going to do all this stuff with you, and let's do a project. Let's do that. Let's do that. I was just kind of saying yes to everybody, doing everything I could. And then after like a year of that, I started to realize like I hadn't really found like my friends yet. I was like, I had found like a bunch of people, and then I had to kind of more so have the process of like how I've always been, which is finding my little group.
Sure. And your little group is?
You want me to name?
Name some names.
Oh, shit. I have friends.
You have to look at the pictures on your wall?
No.
Looks like your friends are Joffer, and Dylan.
That's pretty accurate. There's a couple others.
Me.
Yeah, I was going to get there. Are we friends? No. That is kind of the hard part of... That's more what it was. It's sort of... I had to sort out after a while. I thought I had made all these friends, but it was like I had made colleagues.
It's very complicated.
Sorting that out in comedy is kind of difficult.
Very. I mean, it's also like even parties where you're like, it's hard to tell if it's like a part. It's kind of like a work event.
Yeah, it's always...
So it's complicated when you get, and I'm saying this for myself too, like blackout drunk or like something like embarrassing where you're like, oh, these are my friends. It's like, no, they're kind of like also like your colleagues. Like this is
or when
a business thing.
You get comfortable, you're talking about things, you're talking about maybe like whatever's going on at work, like complaining about the boss or whatever, and then you're like, oh, I'm not like in a safe, you know, cone of silence here. I might as well be like broadcasting to, you know.
I wonder what things I've said have gotten back to people. You ever think about that? I guess it's just anxiety.
Yeah, you know what?
Like, oh,
I should think about that more.
That's not how to win friends or influence people.
No. There's definitely been times. I mean, I'm literally thinking of times that you and I like are on a show and we're just talking shit about somebody on the show. They're still in the room, and we're like, that was wild what she said. I'm like, do you think she's a predator?
Who are you talking about specifically?
I mean, I can edit this.
Yes.
Martin and I just talked shit for a couple more minutes.
Oops.
But the point is, I remember us doing that, except it was more like an hour of shit talking. And then I remember walking away like, was that cool? Was that okay? Like, what? Who was listening to that? Is that gonna... I gotta watch myself. I'm just saying whatever, all willy-nilly.
Kelly, my bad. I told her right after. Sorry.
But
I just didn't know what to talk about.
I feel like we mainly only talk about like people that are kind of, you know, being like rapists and stuff like that.
Yes. Allegedly.
Okay, so you're moving to LA.
Yes.
How are you going to approach manipulating people when you get there?
I was worried about like listening to this book, and because it makes me feel like self-conscious if I already do these things, which as it turns out, it's like remember people's names, smile. Like it's like very funny, simple things. Compliment people. It's like that adage, whatever. You win more. You can catch more flies with honey. Yeah. Whatever. It's like that's the book. That's the book in like 5 words. I was worried, and then listening to it, I think I'm just going to kind of do the same approach I normally would have, which is just kind of show up with a little bit of humility. I do. If I go and I think that I'm going to be some sort of hotshot New Yorker coming in, that's a horrible attitude. I'm going to go in and just be like, I'm just new here. Mm-hmm. I'm new. Tell me what to do. We're cool spots. You know, I'm going to be very open to things as opposed to like approaching with my own jaded sensibilities of how I've carved my life out here.
Right. Yeah. And that makes sense in terms of the advice of the book, because it's about like, It almost seems like the advice is for people who don't really want to make friends. Like it's like people that are really just trying to get ahead and like not. And he's like, pause and like try to be genuine and like approach the situation how you would want to be approached. Like people talking about people's lives and like taking interest in it's like even if you're not, it might help you. But it seems like if you're going in like genuinely wanting to make connections with people, then you're gonna kind of automatically do some of this stuff.
Right.
But I don't know.
I didn't finish the book. I will say that. I like listened to most, I'd say like 3/4 of it. How does it end?
Like many
Who's the
self-help
killer?
books. Self-help book club.
He did mention, maybe I did listen to that part too. Like Lincoln was really angry at somebody.
Yeah, he talks a lot about Lincoln
He
and
loves Lincoln.
and Teddy Roosevelt.
So Lincoln was like really upset at one of the generals for like not like killing the Confederates or whatever when he could have and ended the war.
He writes the letter.
Wrote this nasty letter and then didn't send it.
Yeah.
And it's like he's talking about journaling your feelings.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you can write a letter about all your feelings and then not send it.
Yeah. No, literally.
Boys can have diaries too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it seems like it's like a lot about not being critical and not being judgmental. But then also he kind of...
Which I really was anti.
It's like, come on, how are we going to talk shit about that girl?
Yeah.
But let's see. Toward the end of the book, it becomes more about...
Ooh.
Well, I tried to...
tabs.
I tried to tab like whenever he finally makes the big point. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders.
Mm-hmm. Which also feels like it could be a little like passive aggressive. Like,
Yeah.
Don't we want to make sure that floor's clean, guys?
Yeah. It's a lot about kind of the like, what do they call it? Like compliment sandwich.
Yes.
Or talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest.
That's insane. That's great. I need to finish this book.
Yeah, let the other person save face. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise.
It feels so simple.
Yeah. I mean, literally, in my mind, I do all these things, but I actually, I struggle. Okay, back to the script.
Yes, script.
This book was published in 1936.
Forgot we were talking about a book.
Would you add any new advice for the modern day friend and influencer?
I mean, I wonder. He talks about that guy who like knew everybody's names. Mm-hmm. You know, like there was that one guy whoever helped with Roosevelt's campaign or something.
Yeah, it was something about Roosevelt.
Manager. This campaign manager memorized everybody's names. And the way he did it was by looking at their face and saying their name and having a little thing or whatever. Yeah, there you go. He needs to be diagnosed. That's what I would add to the book. Everybody should get diagnosed. Or maybe, yeah. But I don't know if nowadays is that feasible? I just feel like we have so much more access to like everybody. Like I follow almost 2,000 people on Instagram. That's so many people, so many people's names and shit to remember.
I can't remember those names.
And I don't even follow all of the people who I do know. Like I'm sure, like I don't think about it enough. But like is that feasible? Do you remember everybody's names? Are you really good at that?
No, I'm terrible at that.
I'm really bad at that.
I feel like now what Hollywood people say, you're about to go to Hollyweird. You should know this.
I'm about to go to Hollyweird. I need to know things.
What the agents there, they always say when they see someone, they say, nice to see you.
Yes.
Because you don't remember who all you've met.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say nice to meet you, then you're going to get someone going, we've met.
Yeah.
So you want to say, nice to see you. Remind me, Remind me your name.
So good to see you. Oh, what's your name again?
Or you say no.
We've
You have
never
to
met.
have a little. You have to have a little
You look like
minion
somebody I
behind
know.
you going. That's Kelly. And then
want
you go.
that so
Nice to
bad.
see you,
I
Kelly.
would love a little minion behind me. Those guys are funny.
Yeah.
They're always like banana.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
I love those
Man,
guys.
I love those guys. If I had a little minion, that'd be funny if I had a little minion around me as my assistant and I wanted to know who this person's name was. And then they just whispered banana. I'm like, you're not helpful, but you're
Banana.
so cute. Hello, banana. My name's Mark and we've never met. I'm like, shit.
Yeah. No, I think maybe. Shit.
I was just gonna say that I actually have found that trick of you say nice to see you when you're unsure, and it's very helpful, and it is learned behavior from me being like nice to meet you, and then getting that response, and it shatters my soul. So
Yeah.
I err on the side of safety, but then I worry that it is a little bit too aloof and a little bit too like not like the book says saying a person's name, and I'm like I'm 99% correct. All like a 99.9% correct. And I'm like, I know this person's name, but then I just get worried. So I just say, nice to see you. And then I feel like I'm missing out on a little bit more of a genuine connection by pussying out and being like, oh, I don't know. Like, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah, I do that a lot. I'm so scared of being wrong.
Yeah.
That I'm not even saying the person whose name I surely must know.
Yes.
Whether I'm scared about, dang, that's going off every time.
What is going
I should
on?
really mute it.
What is it?
It's probably just like I have an email or something.
Anything good?
Who knows?
Where are you going to school?
Fordham, stop asking me questions.
Sorry, I'm curious.
We're getting
I read this book. It told me I got to ask questions.
I know, and that's why I wrote.
Oh, right.
I'm trying to be more like the book, but also, I like what you said of maybe people can let themselves be less like the book, it's a lot of pressure, like, to expect yourself to, in our modern day, to, like, be going around, shaking everyone's hand, getting to know, like, we live in a congested world.
Sure.
A lot of people.
It's crazy. One time, okay, so I had my friend Adam. He was like producing my like game show that I was doing over COVID that you did. But he like made a TikTok for me. He was like, "You got to get on TikTok." Yeah, I was like, "I'll get on." You got to get on TikTok. Yeah, I'll get on. And he's like, "What if I made you a TikTok?" I'm like, "Okay." And then he started posting clips for me and getting to this day, it still is the most followers I have on any platform, and I never use it. And he like would follow people. He was like using the account, which I told him, please do, thank you. But he was like following people and like being like, oh, I guess this is has a lot of followers and interacted, whatever. And then one time in person, I met this guy who was like, "Hey man, good to see you." I'm like, "Oh, hi, how's it going?" And he's like, just like talking. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, we follow each other on TikTok, and it's just like nice to finally meet you in person." I'm just like, "Oh no, I've never logged into that account like even once." Like, cool, how's it going? So it's like now there's not even just the personal like meeting connection. Now it's like you kind of also have to be knowing the people online that you've never actually seen face to face.
Right. And there's
So
the people
stressful.
that, even when I meet comedians, I do it on the other end of like, I kind of think I know someone, and then I realize they eventually tell me we've never met, and they're
Yes.
very confident. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just like your clips a lot.
Yes.
And I've seen you.
Seen you on lineups or
I've
whatever.
seen you on shows.
We've been
and
in similar
my mind, I'm
circles.
like, oh, we must have met at some point.
Yeah.
But it makes people more familiar, like more comfortable, acting like they already know you when they don't.
And it gets, the waters get murky, but I love when somebody tells me that we've never met. I'm like, perfect. Let's meet now.
Yeah.
This I know.
Yeah, and then I'm like, I'm not going to forget this name. And then I do forget it literally immediately as I walk away. Oh, man. Well, do you ever get any feedback about your conversation skills? Does anyone ever said something like, wow, you're a great conversationalist, or, Martin, you could work on this?
I think I've gotten positive feedback. Yes, I have gotten positive feedback. And again, it's like lately I've been getting a little bit more bored but I have been in the past. I can kind of talk to anybody. I think it's a thing that my mom passed on to me. Is if you just keep asking questions, people love to talk. If you ask good questions, people are like, oh, okay, and, here's more. And then it's like, oh, I'm just going to ask what I'm interested about. But sometimes people, I'm like, one thing that I get frustrated with is when I'm hanging out with like my girlfriend Eliza and like other like her like friends, her girlfriends, and I have to hang out with the boyfriends.
Yeah.
Some of these boyfriends are real duds. I'm like, I want to go hang out with the ladies. These are my friends. They're talking. That's fun. And then the guys are like, how was you like soccer? I'm like, I don't know, man. I want to talk about what they're talking about over there. I want to gab. I want to goss.
Yeah, that is. It is. I mean, maybe that's what this book is about. It's hard talking to men sometimes, and trying to figure out how to get through. Because I've definitely, I remember when I think I turned the volume up here.
Hello.
I don't know. Before dating a comedian, I remember like when I dated like a regular guy, I would hang out with his friends, and I would really struggle. How do you feel about small talk?
I'm all right at it. It depends. Again, I think I've just my attention span has gotten worse as time has gone on, and I've established like my like and here's also something that's like I hang out with really funny, cool people. Like I'm very lucky, and I've carved out my life in a way where I do that. So then sometimes when people aren't at that level, I'm like it can be a little bit tough. But if somebody is being like very actually uniquely themselves, then it's like a joy, you know. I love when there's people who are like, yeah, I'm like living my own world and I'm comfortable in it. I think there's something about sometimes people are trying to like fake things a little bit more, and I'm just getting more bored about receiving that. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's like I've sometimes feel like I'm become a great socializer, but really I'm just always hanging around people that are super extroverted and funny and interesting. Yeah. And then I get around anyone that has any kind of wall up, and I'm immediately like, wow, I'm still the same. I'm still that same little girl. Mm. Well, have you read any other self-help books?
I don't think so. You know, my mom gave me a book by this. I want to say the guy's name is like Carl Urban, but I know that's not it because that's an actor. But something called like 7 Things That Are Great About Life or something.
Okay, that sounds
7
nice.
Lessons to Help Your Life. And she gave me and she's like, read this book. And I never have. But I've been traveling with it. I've been meaning to, so I should.
Okay, maybe I'll add that to our list.
I don't remember. 7 Rules for Life. It's Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules. No.
7 Essential Truths.
I don't think it's truths. I think it's maybe.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
No, it's not that one. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. No.
That will be on our list.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I think books like that are a little bit when they're like a little bit more esoteric rather than like informational, which I also kind of bail on like informational books. I'm like, I get so excited and then I'm like, there's just like so much information in this. Or if it's not a novel, I'm like, I don't know.
Dang, I'm the opposite of that.
Really?
I'm like, this isn't real. Like, give me something real.
That's fair.
I'm reading. No, I used to like fiction when I was a kid, but now I haven't been able to get into a novel in many years. It's all nonfiction.
I read My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, which was like, it became a super popular book. Now it's like a HBO show. And that book got me back into reading. I hadn't like read a book in like years. Friend. My Brilliant Friend. And I loved it so much. And then I read like books straight for a year straight. This was pre-COVID, I think. Post-COVID? Wow. I forget. But I was like reading a ton. No, yeah, it was pre-COVID because I was reading a ton, and then COVID hit, and then I just fully stopped reading. I'm like, no, now it's like all about video games. Of everyone else. Yeah, really. People started reading.
People started reading during COVID.
I did not know this.
Maybe I made that up. I didn't, but
people had more time. I played video games like crazy. I logged in hours and hours on games.
Yeah,
Zelda and shit.
I don't know what I was doing. I think I was kind of I was sitting in a chair
Just waiting it out.
Dissociating.
Did you bake bread? Did you do that one?
No, I didn't cook at all.
People bake.
I would just
Honestly,
I would just like eat a block of cheese. I had a lot of White Claw.
I was getting unemployment, so I was getting delivery like crazy. I'm like, man, it's crazy out there. I needed some Chipotle. It's like what?
Yeah.
Wiping down the Chipotle bag.
Yeah, what was I doing? I wasn't even watching TV. I guess I was like on my phone.
That was one of the worst places to be. No offense.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Well, some advice from the book is...
Oh, yes.
Here's some advice from the book.
Give it to me.
And then I'm going to apply it for the rest of the conversation. Give honest, sincere appreciation. Smile and say a person's name. Be a good listener. Let them do the talking. Make the other person feel important and do so sincerely. So with that in mind, what's something you're interested in, Martin? I want to talk about that.
Well, Kelly Bachman, one thing I'm interested in is that you're studying at Fordham.
What did you study in college?
Martin studied. I went to college for a semester to study creative writing, and then I dropped out because I hated it, and because I had already started doing comedy. And I was like, I want to continue to do comedy. College was a mistake, just like I thought I was. Just like I thought it was. I didn't want to go in the first place. My parents forced me. I kind of lied to them, said I was like getting all A's, and said I stopped going to classes because I'm like, this isn't for me. They found out that I was like lying to them actively and saying I was getting A's. And so they're like, we don't trust you. So we can't like co-sign a lease. I thought you turned that off. And so there was like a big push and pull. I ended up in Austin, like I wanted to, straight out of high school, to do comedy open mics for like a year. And after a year straight of doing open mics and having done comedy in the past already, I could not get booked on even a single shitty bar show. And I was frustrated. Like, I know that there's shows happening around here. I'm not getting booked on anything. This is so sad. This is so frustrating. Maybe I did make a huge mistake. And I remember there was one open mic at Cherrywood open mic. I went up and it was like, I had been there before and done well and it was good, but that night was particularly bad. I was up at the very end and it was like a guest host and like all my friends had like left. And so it was like three other comics in the crowd. And I go up and I like do this thing where I'm like, at this point, I'm like taking my pants off on stage, like boxers under whatever, but I'm taking my pants off, standing on a chair and like throwing like, I had a bit, it was like Ring Around the Rosies, pocket full of posies. And I throw out a handful of little pictures of Parker Posey, the actress. It was very absurd stuff at the time. And so, but like for three people in the back of this like coffee house, and, obviously just bombed because of course. And then I have to like pull my pants up and then like pick up all the little pieces of Parker Posey because they were hard to like print out and cut out. And the host just looked at me and was just like, so you wrote all that? I was like, and then I finished picking it up. I went straight to my car and I like called my mom crying. I was like, I think I've made a huge mistake doing comedy. I think I need to go back to school. So I decided to go back to school, go back to community college, get my grades back up so I can transfer to a different college and then get a master's program. And what I was studying was psychology. I wanted to be a therapist. Which brings me back to you. So Kelly, you're studying at Fordham.
Wait. What a fascinating story, Martin. Yes, I am going to go to Fordham for social work. But I'm interested, I'm interested that you always knew you wanted to be a comedian, and that, of course, you're this great risk-taking, alternative voice in comedy.
I know you're trying to do compliments. Some of these do not sound like compliments.
Well, you're describing, your act. I'm saying that you, of course, it would make sense that when you first started, you were struggling because you were building up to who you are, which is this person who's such a brave comedian. And you're like juggling chainsaws and you're doing it beautifully, but I'm not surprised that you were trying to do that from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And that, at first you would sometimes miss one.
Yeah, cut off an arm.
But
I remember one time when I finally like got in a bit of a groove and I was performing like at the club, and I would stand around the other comedians who were performing, and audience members would come up to us after and they'd point at my like friend and be like, "Oh, you were so funny." And then they point at me and be like, "And you were so creative." It's not a compliment.
Wow, that sucks. But also, you were starting in Texas, which whenever I've gone there, I mean, it still feels that way when I go. I'm like, I started in New York, so I'm all spoiled by people that are celebrating my weirdness there, and then they're like, "Keep Austin weird," and I'm like, "Oh, they're gonna love me," and then it's like, "No, not like that." I'm like, okay, but you started. How old were you? You said.
I started when I was 17.
When did you know you wanted to do comedy?
15.
What inspired you?
I was in theater, and I'd never really considered that before. I just did it because I chose it as an elective because my friends were all doing it. And then my friends all were like, actually, we changed it. I'm like, what the hell? And I'm in theater alone. And so I'm making new friends, and I really liked it there. I liked acting. I liked comedic acting. And I specifically liked doing monologues that I wrote myself. And people are like, that is called stand-up comedy. I was like, oh. And then I got really into stand-up. Like, I watched so much. I was a fan of all of it. And I wanted to go up, but nobody would let a child on stage. So I had to I had to go out of town to Dallas, Backdoor Comedy Club, which was like in this like tiny room in this like in a Hyatt or something, in a Hyatt hotel. And I went up and did my very first open mic, and I did well. I killed it.
Nice.
But it's like I had been preparing for 2 years, so like thank God I killed it. And also in my mind it was killed, and I wonder what that would look like now. Do you have footage of yourself when you first started?
I do, yeah. I do have. There was like, for me, I was like really living vicariously through others for a while. Like I was directing sketch. And I was dating a comedian, and I was helping him write, and I was like going to his stuff, and I was really like I belong behind the scenes, but meanwhile always like writing my little just in case one day if someone like if I had to go up, like I was like only preparing like for some sort of emergency situation where because I would like produce a show and it'd be like, oh, if the host dropped out or something.
Wow.
But it would be like, I just didn't think it was for me. I had all these excuses. Mainly they were like fear related. Like I have stage fright. People with stage fright don't do comedy. People with anxiety, surely they don't do comedy. But
and then what clicked?
Well,
you saw people going on stage like, I have anxiety. Well, you know, it's like Mike Birbiglia said. He was like, I would always like go, and I'm relating to this hard, which is, he was like, I would always go into these places, like sell like, however many people in like a tiny, I'd sell a small amount of tickets, and then an even smaller amount really liked me. And I just had to get that really small amount all together into one room, and then that's a good show. And then that's where he built it up from. And I'm like, yeah,
that makes sense.
Because I'm like, I feel like bad. Like I see who's selling out on the road. I'm pretty aware of everybody who's doing quite well out there. And I can see a lot of it where I'm like, oh, if that is what people really want, then I'm fucked. Because that is not what I do.
But that's not who you want to be either.
And then that's sort of the wrestle. It's like, who do I want to be?
Right.
I need to be somewhere in between, because I can't just also be like shooting myself in the foot for, claiming it's artistic. There's a purpose to it, and then not helping myself when I could help myself while remaining in the art. But then how much of it is selling too much? That's kind of like what I'm like wrestling with right now with this like new hour or whatever. But it's, I'm selling a percentage of a small. I sell like 20 to 40 tickets. That's it. Everywhere I go, no matter what the size of the venue, no matter how much they help, it's always 20 to 40 tickets. And I am like, well, you know what? The people after are really nice. Those are some of my best shows when it's 20 to 40 tickets. Better than when they just like actually like promote the hell out of it and like pack it out with people who don't know me. And they're like, there's probably 20 to 40 people in here who do really like me. Just got to get them all together, get them to know me. And I think a lot of people don't like stand-up right now because it is what it is. Like people I've heard say that I don't really like stand-up. And it's like, well, I bet you'd like Kelly Bachman. I bet you'd like my stuff. I bet you'd like certain people who I think need to be a little bit more in the forefront. Just more variety, you know?
I know you're our in 2020. Dylan and I were performing our hour Rape Victims Are Horny Too for the first time.
Yeah.
And on the same night, we had this like write up in the New York Times, and I saw on the same page your show was written up, and it was like also a show like making fun of rapists.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? There was a beep. I don't know if people can hear it, but that's what I keep reacting to. But I was like, yeah, your show was also written up in the New York Times. And I was like, there can only be one. But really, I was like, I got to see that show. And then I did see it, The Apology Come Back. And I loved it. And it's so great. And knowing that you did the special in Texas, like right in the kind of belly of the beast of what comedy is becoming in Austin, I was so impressed. It's so funny. It's also just, it's so, I don't know. It's really like brave the way you go about it, of like playing this character that's like the villain. And you're one of my favorite comedians, and I sincerely mean that, Martin.
Thank you, Kelly.
I was doing the advice.
The feeling is mutual. I saw your show and I thought it was incredible, and I really like that it's a like a sister show to my show. You know, like I really like, and because I think like I like what I do. I don't know. Brave is a very funny word to use. I think it's a very stubborn show, and it's like a premise that I'm like very like obsessed with artistically. To be like, I'm never gonna drop the character in this hour, and it served me only negatively. I think, like positively in the way that some people are like, oh, that's like cool. It's like that varies like a small sliver. Mostly people are like, we're very confused by this. We do not like this. I'm like, that's fair, but I can't. If I say no, then I lose the game that I'm playing in my head.
Well, those people are wrong, and people who liked it are right.
Thank you, Kelly.
But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine taping that in Austin. I mean, Dylan and I literally performed there, and I think someone yelled, "Grab her by the pussy." And then we were like, "Give it up for our homophobic audience." And they were like, "Woo, yeah, we are."
Oof. What venue?
I think that was at, what's it called? Velveeta Room?
Oh, sure. 6th Street. Yeah. I mean, Austin has also like changed since I was there 8.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, things have changed there.
Yeah, there's a new guard.
And it's more of a fun coincidence, a funny, rather, coincidence that I taped my special there. It was not, I did not mean that part to be an artistic statement.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was.
Yeah. Very funny coincidence.
Well, I like to end the show by trying this new segment where people write in questions and the guest answers them.
Okay.
And Kenise asked a question. She said, "How do you handle writer's block?"
Oh. I don't really have writer's block. Like, I've struggled with it in the past, but like lately, when I did my game show over quarantine, over lockdown, I was doing a weekly game show where I had to prepare like at least minimum like 15 questions just to have locked and loaded, and like a couple mini games. And each question was a joke. But was a real trivia question, and then each multiple choice question had a joke. And then sometimes I would include like a fact in it that was true and also a joke. And so I like had to write, a bunch of jokes every week, every single week. And so that did distract me from everything that was going on, but like that was like really good writing exercise for me. And also on this show called Stamptown, which you're familiar with, I do this bit where I live review the show. And so I'm watching the show and I'm having to write jokes in the moment. And then they call me up after every couple performers and it's like, oh, let's check in with our reviewer. What have you been thinking about the show? And I have to say jokes that I just wrote and compete with these like world-class acts and be like, this is what I just saw and what I just thought of. And I've bombed certain jokes, but overall I'm like, the pressure of that made me be like, okay, I really need to I need to be funny. So I have to write funny jokes. And so like forcing that out of me, I just did Chris Gethard's show last night and he had me do a similar thing where it's like I'm on stage writing jokes during everybody's act. And after every one, I give Chris jokes that I wrote. And then part of the gag is that I'm writing stuff for him to say, like some problematic stuff for him to say. And he's like, oh, I can't believe I have to say this, whatever. That's the gag. But I'm on stage writing jokes the whole time. And I'm like, that is scary and that's a lot of pressure. But at this point, with all the training I've had, it was like so easy. And they didn't all hit, but like they mostly hit. And I was like, just writing a bunch. And that was like fun. So I think it's just like putting yourself in situations where you have to write something, like that is the best training. And so now I really don't get writer's block. In fact, when I have time to sit and write, a lot of stuff comes out.
I mean, someone get this guy a writing job.
Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, he hired you again?
Like, hey man, I saw you got even better at writing.
You could write for like SNL or something. Something where they gotta be like,
I'm moving to LA. I'll find something out there.
oh yeah. What's out there? Kimmel.
Kimmel.
Self-help book club.